Good morning to everyone. Welcome to Asia Pacific Association Educators Training Institute, the sixth wave of the free webinar series. Our session will focus on teacher leadership, moving towards the reopening of classes for learners' engagement and well-being amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Whether they are called headmasters, principals, directors, teachers, they are all school leaders. School leaders play an important role in education systems' COVID-19 responses. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in at least one positive thing. What do you think is that? A much greater appreciation for the importance of public schools. Let us seize this moment and chart a vision for how education can emerge. The school's challenge in this COVID-19 pandemic, according to Dr. Laila Ariola, under the Curriculum and Instruction Division of the Department of Education, and I quote, "School closures widen learning inequalities and hurt vulnerable children and youth disproportionately." What does this mean? As school principal and teachers, we have a special responsibility to ensure continuity, inclusion, and equity for all students. During this crisis, we observe that leaders and heroes emerge. Are you one of them, dear friends? Salute to you, therefore. It is often said that during crisis, leaders emerge. The 2020 COVID-19 pandemic has brought out the leadership, indeed, heroism of citizens across society. From essential workers keeping store shelves stocked, to celebrities keeping up spirits through at-home performances, to political leaders bringing their constituencies along in the difficult commitments to stay home to save lives. And of course, our frontline medical professionals have led and sacrificed beyond measure. Amidst the emerging leaders and heroes in the pandemic, the vital role of our nation's teachers, particularly those serving our highest needy students, has stood out as extraordinary. Stepping up to lead during this unprecedented crisis can fulfill a fundamental craving for meaning and purpose. According to leadership experts Hayfitz and Linsky 2002, the answer to the question, "Why lead?" is both simple and profound. The sources of meaning most essential in the human experience draw from our yearning for connection with other people. The exercise of leadership can give life meaning beyond the usual day-to-day stakes, approval of friends and peers, material gain, or the immediate gratification of success. Because as a practical art, leadership allows us to connect with others in a significant way. The word we use for that kind of connection is, of course, love. Let us study the figure. What does it mean? It means encouraging and enabling teachers, expression of love for students, and of course for the society is one way that leaders from schoolhouses to capitals can build our collective resilience so that society comes out of the pandemic stronger. At this time of pandemic, the opportunity for leadership could not be greater. As events continue to unfold, we are reminded that the Chinese symbol for crisis is composed of two characters, one meaning danger and the other meaning opportunity. At this time, the opportunity for leadership could not be greater. According to Thomas Friedman, with people feeling frightened and uncertain by the COVID-19 pandemic, leadership doesn't just matter more. It matters exponentially. At this unprecedented time, teachers have quickly and willingly demonstrated just the type of courageous leadership that is needed. Teachers are leading with confidence through reflective practice, constantly reassessing and responding to the ever-changing landscape of the new normal classroom environment, while managing personal and professional priorities, and of course, serving families and communities across the country. The leadership skills of teachers bring to their classrooms daily and to the current pandemic stem from the core propositions that undergird the standard for accomplished teaching stewarded, including teachers are committed to students and their learning. Teachers know the subjects they teach and how to teach those subjects to students. Teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. Teachers think systematically about their practices. Teachers are members of learning communities or the school. Connection to webinar series. Take note that webinar series highlights the powerful impacts of teachers being part of a learning community that is led by accomplished teachers. As school systems responded to COVID-19 by closing schools, teachers began to gather in virtual spaces to share expertise, just like what we are doing right now. Elevate online pedagogy and address equity by sharing inspiring ways to support students who do not have access to devices or the internet. Teachers as individuals, pairs, and teams are exemplifying what it means to lead in a pandemic in different ways. Lead with compassion. Just as we focus on the whole child, right now, we must focus on the whole person for everyone in our schools. And lastly, teachers as support structure for learners. Virus or no virus, teachers are persevering in its mission, that is to engage and support high-quality teaching and learning through professional growth and leadership. School emphasizes teacher reflection, continuous improvement, use of educational technology, and engagement with learning communities. The demonstrated expertise and professionalism of teachers helps the public see teaching as the complex craft it is, worthy of the respect, compensation, and working conditions seen in these other professions. As such, an army of champions across the nation and on both sides of the aisle stand ready to support every school in their leadership pursuits. Teachers that embody these skills, uniquely positioned to lead in the swift and ever-changing remote learning transition. Leaders from every sphere can bolster the continuous development and retention of high-quality teachers through information dissemination and resource provisions. Teachers, therefore, need significant extra time to pour into her passion of advancing teaching and learning by building awareness about the new policy and connecting within and across the school and the Department of Education as a whole. When few leaders are searching for additional responsibilities at this time of crisis, taking the time to support teachers as leaders can pay dividends in the short and long term. Unleashing the talent and passion of our educators can fulfill much needed voids around system supports, moral building, innovation, and community in the immediate term. Moreover, supporting teacher leaders in the pandemic can catalyze longer-term norms for this worsening policy priority area. Abundant evidence shows that, prior to COVID-19, teachers crave greater leadership opportunities and voice. For example, a national survey data by Scholastic found out that 75% believed a greater decision-making role for teachers in regards to school policies and practices was very important or absolutely essential for improving teacher retention. On the other, 60% believe opportunities for additional responsibility and advancement while staying in the classroom. This was very important or absolutely essential. And 2% felt the opinions of teachers like me were heard and valued in national education decision making. More recently, the 2020 Educators for Excellence Voices from the Classroom survey found an overwhelming 95% of teachers wish there were more opportunities to influence education policy, while less than 30% say their perspective is sought out at least monthly by district leaders. Beyond teachers' preference for greater voice and leadership, research finds that students in a school with greater levels of teacher leadership perform more than 10 percentage points higher both in mathematics and English language arts proficiency exam. Having supportive school leaders, therefore, was more important for enabling teacher leadership than title, training, or mentorship. 84% of respondents cited school leaders as among the most effective supports, compared to 32, 69, and 63% respectively, citing these other support areas. Here are some strategies for school leaders. First, seek out and listen to teachers at scale. Turn to teachers as leaders and partners in navigating the COVID-19 crisis and educational response over time. Create avenues to solicit teacher expertise and create open communication to understand what they are experiencing and what they and their students need to continue learning in this crisis. In particular, engage teachers with an intimate understanding of the struggles of our most vulnerable students during the pandemic. Students who were at risk before now face risks far greater yet far less visible, and their teachers, particularly those from similar backgrounds, can help elevate their circumstances and needs at the policy table. Second, trust, support, and encourage teacher leaders' ambitions. We have to show appreciation publicly and wherever possible for the leadership roles teachers are taking. Schools who engage in extraordinary teacher leadership have shared how reassuring and motivating it was to know their administration stood behind their efforts and in some cases actively encouraged teachers to move their leadership and expertise from the margins to the center. This trust may extend to finding ways to relieve teachers of unnecessary time burdens so they may attend to higher impact pursuits. It may be personal or professional at this time of crisis. The third one is invest in teachers, particularly in solutions that strengthen practice and build leadership capacity. To start, commit your appreciation for teachers, notwithstanding the uncertain times. While the economic impact of the pandemic will likely touch all aspects of society, reassurance that teachers are valued by our highest level leaders can be a source of comfort in uncertain times. And the fourth one is provide flexibility and funding for schools to approach distance learning. Take note, my dear friends, that every school community has such different needs. Many believe that education system must define clear roles and supports for school leaders to respond to the impacts of school closures and support them in advance through the step to reopening of schools. This was based from the survey conducted by the International Council for Open and Distance Education. The following are the recommendations to reopening of schools. The first recommendation is clearly define the role of school leaders in crisis response. The bar graph shows that school leaders strongly feel responsible for ensuring the welfare of their learners during this pandemic. This sense of responsibility can be further utilized to support their communities. It is critical that governments set clear guidelines on what is expected of school leaders and well as providing support and resources required to perform their roles. The next graph depicts that the school leaders have an important perspective in the challenges faced by their communities, and their voices should be incorporated when defining the role during the crisis. Globally, our school leaders are most concerned with student well-being, second, online teaching, and finances in that order. We believe, of course, that school leaders should be tasked to inspiring and coordinating their teams to have collective action to address these top three concerns. Recommendation number 2 is enlist school leaders to lead the process of reopening schools. When school eventually reopen this October 5, we expect that school leaders will face a high burden in quickly creating friendly, safe, and healthy learning spaces for their learners. Drawing on the literature that focuses on schools emerging from disasters, we believe that leaders and teachers will have to address the following factors. First, mental health and well-being challenges among teachers and learners who may have suffered from anxiety, depression, isolation, or malnutrition. School leaders will have to be trained in identifying symptoms of these challenges and in lay practitioner methods to address this. The second is learning losses among children. We anticipate these losses to be more severe in schools that were of lower quality, as the base of learning among learners would already have been lower. What is the answer to this challenge? Rapid remedial lessons. But take note that this will require additional support for leaders and teachers. The third one is loss of students and teachers. We are very much aware that in urban areas, migrant workers, including teachers, have headed back to rural homes during the crisis. While many will come back to their urban homes, many may not. And depending upon the eventual spread of coronavirus, there should be loss of lives among teachers, parents, and learners. Of course, we pray hard that this should not happen. The spread of coronavirus should stop the soonest in God's will. The fourth is ensuring adequate supplies. With the interruption in supply chains, things like textbooks, learning materials, and other learning resources may be in short supply, and it will fall to school leaders to figure out plans for learning to continue. And the last one is scheduling and other logistical challenges. Depending upon how controlled the return to fully open communities is, there may be scheduling challenges. This would mean that teachers have to be prepared anytime with high degree of flexibility. The third recommendation is to develop programs to train and connect school leaders. It is important to provide support to leaders to face the challenges we want them to lead through. Moving toward context-specific, online professional development programs is a critical support for leaders. Education systems shall connect school leaders and teachers so that they can rapidly share best practices. School leaders have a unique insight into the challenges being faced by their communities, and some of them are being quite innovative and resourceful. What about the recommendations to improve learners' engagement in the reopening of classes? Take note that learners should be well-oriented. What are the various learning modalities? Were the learners informed or oriented? What is the most appropriate learning modality applicable to a specific school? Do learners in a specific learning community aware of the modality to be adopted? What are the process flow of the modality? Are they familiar with the process flow of the modality to be implemented? How will the teacher teach? Is it synchronous or asynchronous? How will the learner engage? Is it self-managed learning, discussion forum, or group? How will you communicate? Is it through email, Facebook, Twitter, Messenger, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or any other online platforms? How will you assess the learning? Is it online, assignment, take home, printed, or what? Are there available resources I can use? And are the resources readily available? If the learner can answer the questions positively, then you will expect active engagement of the learner. All of the above concerns and decisions were based on existing capacities and capabilities quickly conceptualized and agreed upon by the departments of education for implementation without compromising, of course, quality of education. During a recent webinar hosted by global school leaders, it was clear that education systems should be delivering four clear messages to improve learners' well-being and, of course, their engagement through this crisis and as they move toward the opening of classes. The first one is focus on basic needs first. Before we think about reopening of schools, we need to make sure that children's basic needs like food, health, and emotional well-being are met. Teachers and school leaders must be prepared to meet the psychosocial needs of children who have been through difficult times. Second, focus on the most marginalized and at-risk children. Dr. Parveen Kumar, a leader from India, said, "The interests of those at-risk children must be at the core of the strategy of every school leader." When schools reopen, learners have different needs, and resources will need to be prioritized to match those needs of the learners. Initial focus should be on the needs of the most marginalized children so that the inequalities exposed by COVID-19 crisis are exacerbated. The third one is focus on engaging the community through communication and collaboration. While many challenges with connectivity remain, schools are becoming more connected digitally to the parents and communities of their learners. School and community connection shall be continuously strengthened to support learning and build confidence. The fourth one is embrace new opportunities to focus learning. In this time of pandemic, school leaders and teachers in many countries are working in an uncomfortable situation with little prior experience to guide them in their responsibilities. As a result, educators are innovating and finding their own ways to focus on the needs of the learners. Indonesian educator Dr. Iwan Sharil said, "We are becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable." We've been talking about student-centered learning for ages, but COVID-19 is giving us the trust that this is okay. You don't just teach your curriculum, but you have to look at your students and start there. This is therefore an opportunity to reimagine the curriculum and ensure that each student is learning. The Department of Education Secretary Leonor M. Briones said, and I quote, "Teaching children how to accept and adjust to changes that are happening around them. We have to start with the children to give them courage, to give them initiative, to help them look at problems realistically, and to continually have hope and confidence that we will overcome this. So my dear fellow educators, let us always move forward amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. Hashtag, together stronger we educate. You may be somewhere around the globe, but together we may give our children the roots to grow and the wings to fly. With this, I say thank you to everyone and best of luck to the school opening. Long live my teacher, my hero. This is Lordel Runas Sulyo signing off.